Rotary Club of Lowell. I'm Ken Salvaggi, President-elect, and House's fellow +1. President Lori is in San Antonio on the glide trip. She'll be here next week. Silence your phones and providing the invocation, Melissa Cobb, Business Development at Panorama Downtown.
Thank you, President-elect. Good afternoon. Please spend this moment with me to reflect on our blessings and to ask for continued guidance. Today we offer thanks. We're thankful for our many abundant blessings. We're thankful for our lives, for the measure of our health that we need each day, for sustenance, and for our relationships, both personal and professional. I am grateful for the opportunity to participate in activities such as these that promote growth and our continued betterment. May our speakers be blessed today with the words they need to send and the messages that we need to hear. As I conclude this invocation, we ask for peace in our time, joy in our work, and strength for the journey. Thank you.
Thank you, Melissa. Now to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Matthew Moulter, Director of Operations and Planning at Victor's Distillery, Rotary Leadership Fellow.
Thank you, President-elect. Join me for the pledge.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Four-way pledge.
Is the truth, is fair to all concerned, will build goodwill and better friendships, will be beneficial to all concerned.
Thank you.
All right, time for guests. Rotarians, please introduce yourself first, then your guest, give your name, title, and organization, and guests please stand when you are introduced.
Hi, President-elect Ken. My guest today is Vivian Blade. She is a speaker and author and our speaker for next week's meeting, so she's here to check us out, and we welcome her.
Hi, Bob Slider. My guest is University of Louisville grad and UofL School of Dentistry grad, Dr. Ken Hoffman.
President Ken, I've been on a run of introducing guests who were Ballard High School graduates. I couldn't do that this week, but I think second best. But the good news is my guest is Matt Schwartz, who's the CEO of Schwartz & Associates, whose son did graduate from Ballard High School in 2016. So welcome.
Good afternoon, and I'd love to introduce Walter Dove Newell, CEO of Louisville Tile Distributors, a family-owned business established in 1955. Louisville Tile has expanded to 13 locations across 5 states, serving over 2,500 dealers and countless contractors and designers. Thanks for joining us today, Dove. And Brooke Porters, thanks for coming. As a proud Louisville native and has been a valued member of Louisville Tile for 7 years. As a senior account executive, she works closely with local architects and designers who are creating the future foundation for our city. Thank you for being here.
My name is Jason Pierce, and my special guest today is Jim Rogers. Jim is retired executive with Hilliard Lions, avid UofL supporter and chairman of the Boy Scout Board currently.
Welcome all guests, and we invite you to join Jane Mallory for a real brief session of What is Rotary at the What is Rotary table in the back. That's why it's sitting there waiting for you all. Big news, our clubs received the Club Excellence Award from Rotary International for our achievement during the last Rotary year that helped create hope in the world. Thanks to all of you who possible through your service above self. Several Rotarians were in the spotlight at last week's sold-out Leadership Louisville Luncheon. Congratulations to Cynthia and APEC and the Leadership Louisville team for a fantastic event. It was really awesome. The link captured a few of the Rotarians in attendance. That's the one where Mr. Pope and Mr. Kelsey entertained everybody with Mayor Greenberg giving really good questions to them on leadership. They were terrific, and it was an amazing event. Kudos to Joseph Yearby and the Anti-Threat Solutions team for hosting the second annual Back to School Bash recently with free food, backpacks, haircuts, prizes, and live Stop the Bleed demonstration. All right. So I went out over there.
That's all right. I figured it out.
Social Activities Committee just met, and they are up to planning even more things. They invite you to a Rotary happy hour tomorrow, September 6th, on the patio at Colonial Gardens. That's across from Iroquois Amphitheater. The popular band, the Checkmates, will be playing from 6 to 9 p.m. Contact Jeff Underhill for more information. He chairs that committee. The committee also is planning a Rotary Day at the volleyball court Sunday, September 22nd at 12:30. Watch a really good UofL women's team take on Nebraska. They're pretty good too. Mentoring for our Rotary Honor Scholars starts back up at Western High School, September 17th. It is an awesome thing to do. That's at Iroquois High School. It's also on September 25th. Western is September 17th, Iroquois is the 25th. And see Chair Craig Mooney if you'd like to be a part of this important monthly program. New volunteer dates have been added to help enroll families for the Dolly Parton Imagination Library program. Details are on the screen, or to see Rick Harned. And this is your final chance to enter the drawing for a free lunch by giving us some feedback on the communications you received from the club. Click the survey link at the top of the Sparks newsletter or scan the QR code on the screen. Now I'd like to invite Jay Mallory up. He's Executive VP of Marketing and Business Development at ImageQuest, and he's chair of the Membership Development and Engagement Committee and co-chair of the District Membership Committee. He's a Paul Harris Fellow. He's going to induct a new member.
Hey, good afternoon. Would Ramona Donald please join me at the front? So fellow Rotarians, we seek to grow our membership. We not only increase our usefulness and influence as a club, but may also extend our spirit of Rotary throughout the community. Today it's my honor to induct a new member. Always exciting. So Ramona, you've been elected to membership in this club because we believe you to be a worthy representative of your calling and to possess qualities that will permit you to exemplify in your public, business, social, and private life the true spirit of Rotary. You've been admitted not only to the 13th largest Rotary club, I think we were the 14th. Now we're the 13th largest Rotary club in the world, but to a global organization of 46,000 clubs where you are also welcome at any time. Rotary membership adds value to those who engage, whether by attending meetings and events, participating in service projects, or sharing your knowledge and talents as we carry out the principles of Rotary to the community.
Y'all take note, she's wearing Rotary colors.
I think those are Louisville Dale High School colors. No, okay. Oh no, that was bad. That was bad. So I now formally induct you as a member of the Rotary Club of Louisville and then present you with your pin. So let's learn a little bit more about Ramona. She's Senior Vice President of Community Leadership at the Community Foundation of Louisville. She leads a team of individuals committed to equipping low wealth and overlooked communities with resources to practice self-determination for future choice, autonomy, and control over their lives. Ramona joined the foundation in July 2017 as a program coordinator. Previously, she introduced families to contemporary art at K-Mac Museum as the Director of Education. She began her career in retail banking before transitioning into public education and nonprofit work. She obtained a bachelor's degree in business administration from Florida A&M University and a master's in teaching and elementary education from Spalding University. Ramona is an artist and a storyteller. Her creative process enables her to think beyond expectations and challenge traditional philanthropic savior narratives. She believes that through trusted partnership and shared values, we will become a human quilt of collective power that disrupts oppressive systems. So join me in welcoming Ramona to our club.
Great to have you, Ramona. A lot of you folks. Now it's my pleasure to introduce our speaker today. Josh Heird's accomplishments keep growing as he approaches his 4th year as the athletic director at the University of Louisville. Creating a partnership with 502 Circle to make it the official NIL collective of the Louisville Cardinals, operating independently from UofL and working directly with student athletes to maximize their opportunities in the NIL space. Energizing the basketball and football programs with the hires of Pat Kelsey and Jeff Brom and considerably growing season ticket sales. Helping Louisville student athletes record 27 straight semesters with a GPA of 3 or better and setting a record 2 years ago with a 92% graduation for them. Finalizing a $41 million naming rights deal for the football stadium and finishing a state-of-the-art Denny Crum Residence Hall. Securing a $4 million commitment to open the Angels Envy Bourbon Club and a $1 million donation to enhance the Jim Patterson Baseball Stadium. Seeing 12 current, former, and future athletes compete in the Olympic Games last month in Paris, including 8 swimmers from both the men and women's teams. Competing in the ACC Football Championship last year for the first time ever. Finishing as national runner-up 2 years ago in volleyball while the women's hoop team was making their 5th straight Elite 8 appearance. And watching the cheer squad win its 10th consecutive title last year. 8 teams reached the top 25 in the national rankings, and 9 reached the NCAA postseason last year. So he's on a roll. Josh has more than 15 years experience in athletic administration between Louisville and Villanova, and previously worked 5 years in D.C. with a congressman and senator. He earned an MBA from Louisville and is a Mississippi college grad where he played football and ran cross country and track. He and his wife Abby have 2 children, Haley and Gus. Welcome, Josh Heird.
Thanks, Ken. Excited to be here. Listing off, I guess we would call those accomplishments. It was a little different than a meeting I was in with some staff the other day when, and you mentioned 4th year. It's actually going into my 3rd. It's a little shorter. Sometimes it seems more like 20. But Lottie on our staff, wrapping up a meeting, and she goes, "Were you here for the end of the Chris Mack era?" I was like, "Yeah, Lottie, like, I negotiated all of that." And then we just went down that, like, memory lane of all the things on the other end of the spectrum that I've been a part of, as far as just navigating some situations. And but I say all that, you know, I think we're headed in the right direction. I really, really do. And when I say we, I don't mean the athletic department. I mean this university as a whole. And I know President Chatson was here a week ago, and I think you can attribute a lot of that to her leadership. I think you can attribute a lot of that momentum to the Board of Trustees and the alignment that they have right now. And it's, quite honestly, it's a lot of fun to be a part of right now. I actually mentioned to the president last time we meet bi-weekly, and she just, check in, how are you? And I'm like, I'm sleeping through the night, things are good. Because there was a decent portion of my tenure where that was not happening. But I say all that, I think what has enabled us to do some of the things that we've done is we've hired really, really good people. And we're really excited about the coaches, the staff, the student athletes that are representing this university and this athletic department. And we really are. We're excited about the future. We're excited about this season. Football, feel really good about where we are on the football front. But then you look at our volleyball program, they beat number 3 ranked Wisconsin, swept 15th ranked Tennessee, and then as I texted Danny after they lost to Penn State, who's 7th in the country, I said, it might have been a little ambitious to schedule 3 top 15 teams in the span of a week. But I think that's going to set them up for presumably the success that they're going to have down the road, and especially looking forward to hosting the Final Four in volleyball in December at the Young Center in the middle of December. So then you get into our soccer programs. They're both undefeated right now. Men's soccer program's playing Notre Dame on Friday. Field hockey program is top 10 program in the country. Talked about the excitement around men's and women's basketball, spring sports, baseball, and track, and I could go on and on. But just like I said, a lot of things to be really excited about. On the campus side, and I'm sure the president mentioned this last week, but to think about that, this is the most amount of students that we have ever had on campus, living on campus. Over 4,000 students living on the University of Louisville campus. I don't know how many University of Louisville alums there are in this room, but I can't imagine anybody when they went to school here thought that there was going to be 4,000 students living on this campus. So really need to see that. Excuse me. And then largest incoming freshman class. I'm assuming the president highlighted that as well last week. But I'm sure everybody's read the articles about the enrollment cliff, the enrollment declining, this and that, and it's not happening here. And I think that is because, once again, because of the leadership, we have said that we want to grow enrollment. The president has said she wants to grow enrollment. And the other thing that she really, really wants to do is retain the students that are here. And once again, I'm sure she talked about that, about the importance of making sure that we graduate the students that come to the University of Louisville. So that's a priority for the athletic department, and it's a priority for the leadership of the university as a whole. And Ken mentioned it, but 93% graduation rates for our athletic department is, quite honestly, it's really good. I mean, it's really, really good. Just to give you a sense, the university's hovering just over 60%. And so for our student athlete population to be at 92, and we just, what we've done, and this has been years in the making with Marvin and his team, is that they just have the support that they need. I think if all of our students on campus have the support that our student athletes are given, campus as a whole would probably be above 90%. But as I tell our student athletes, when you decide to come here, when I'm talking to recruits, or talking incoming freshmen like I did a few weeks ago, you've got to try to screw this thing up, honestly. I mean, you really do. With the amount of support that we provide you, you basically just have to say, I'm not going to do anything. That's about the only way you're going to fail as a student athlete here at the University of Louisville. So excited about the support we're providing there. I was laughing as I pulled some notes, and then I read the speaker agreement as I was about to walk over here, and said, members enjoy hearing about business and community happenings, events, news, and other updates. General leadership topics are not as well received. I'm like, well, probably just throw this out the but what I thought I would do is just talk a little bit about, I guess I would call it our culture, and I guess a little bit of my leadership philosophy. So hopefully you guys will receive this a little bit better than some, I suppose, here. But I thought what I would do is just try to talk about, I'm huge into quotes. Like, that's the amount of times that I just read a quote and write it down, and I tell it to our staff, our coaches, or whatever it may be, because I say, I'm not smart enough to come up with things on my own. And so I just take things from others, and to me that's what leadership is. Leadership is, it's not reinventing the wheel, it's not blazing your own trail, it's saying, hey, somebody has done this somewhere in the past. And so how do we look back at those successes and say, hey, let's try to do it here? And that's what we've tried to do. And so far it's going pretty well. Obviously we've had, there's been some hiccups, but I go back to, I talked to this group, 2 years ago? I talked about just wanting people to be proud to have the L or the bird, on their hat or on their shirt, just when they put that shirt or that hot hat on, to be proud of it. And, unfortunately, I do think there were some times where, I had a lot of Louisville stuff in my closet when I was in Philly. And with everything going on, there were some times where it's like, I think I'm going to put this shirt on or that shirt on. But I just want people to be proud of wearing that bird, that L. And, we got a long way to go, but I think we're getting there. And, because we had that for a long period of time. And, getting back there is where I want us to be. And so, like I said, I just thought I'd throw a few quotes out there and just talk about our culture a little bit. And, one that's resonated with me recently, talking about Pat Kelsey, he mentions this daily, hourly. I think the guys on his team go to sleep, and this is the last thing they hear. And it's the power of the unit. That is one of his mantras: the power of the unit, the uncommon commitment to the person next to you, and the uncommon commitment to the people around you in your organization. And I think that's something that we've really tried to instill. We just haven't said it in those exact words. But how do we make sure that we are doing what's right for the organization, not necessarily what's in our best interest? And as I tell our coaches, our staff, our job is to take care of the University of Louisville. At the end of the day, my job is to make sure that we make the decisions that are best for the University of Louisville. And I think we've all been in those situations where sometimes that conflicts with what's best for us personally. And that's something that I remind our coaches, our student athletes, our staff about all the time. Like, no matter what you do, what is the right decision for the University of Louisville? And so that's the culture we're trying to instill there. This one's pretty self-explanatory. If each of us hires people who are smaller than we are, we shall become an organization of dwarfs. But if each of us hires people who are bigger than we are, we shall become an organization of giants. That was pretty self-explanatory, right? But making sure that we're hiring the right people. And I'm emphatic. Hiring people, anybody, raise your hand if you hire people. It kind of sucks, right? It's just like, it's a long process. You're not sure you're going to get it right. And in fact, sometimes hey, you're not going to get them all right. You know that. But this is just about taking your time. I tell our staff all the time, especially people that are managing people, like 9 times out of 10, you move too fast when you look to hire somebody. You just do, because you want to get it off your plate. You want to check that off the to-do list, as opposed to saying, hey, let me really dig into the background of this person and let me see if this truly is the right fit. And guess what? If you're asking the question, is this the right fit? It's probably not. And so it's okay. We just had somebody was, we were hiring somebody that's super excited about, and it's like, hey, I want to come, but I need a little more money. And it's like, if I would have been in that situation, I would have said, all right, you're probably not the one for us, because I want people that want to be here. But I was like, hey, if you feel like they're that important, we can, find a little bit more money, found a little bit more money. That's great. I need a little bit more money. I was like, guys, don't fall in love with the first house that you look at. There's a bunch of great people in this world. Make sure that we hire people that want to be here. And so we're focused on that as well. This next group of quotes, I would tell you, I got to experience. It truly was an opportunity of a lifetime. Actually, I had about 2 of those in the span of a month in August. One, I got to go to the Olympics, which was one of the coolest things I've ever done in my life. Got to watch a Louisville native get the bronze medal in the 1,500 meters, which was, I think he was, I don't want to say he was unexpected to get the bronze, but to see an American win in Cole Hocker from Indy, and then I'm totally blanking on the kid that went to Manual. Somebody give me his name. Yard Goose. There you go. Went to Notre Dame, and so I got to watch that, and me and 80,000 other people. But it was just one of the coolest experiences I've ever been a part of, and I'll just speak on it briefly. It truly embodied the power of sport, because it wasn't necessarily about who was winning gold medals. I think that when the crowd was the loudest, it was the women's steeplechase final, and there was 5 to 7 leaders that just took off. I mean, they were a long way ahead of everybody. And steeplechase, 3,000 meters, so 7.5 laps. It's like 2 laps to go. There's this French woman who you can tell, she is moving faster than the leaders, but she has a lot of ground to make up. And she is gaining on them. And it didn't matter if you were French. Oh my gosh, we might see something unbelievable here. And she ended up getting 4th. So she didn't medal, right? So if you're watching this on TV, she probably wasn't even mentioned, but she literally did a victory lap, because that's how proud she was and the fans were, and it was really, really cool. But I say all that because sports brings people together. And that was the most evident I've ever seen it. Because for me, most of the time, I say sports brings people together. Most of the time, though, there's two factions, right? There's the visiting fans, the home fans. And to truly see an entire stadium cheering for the same thing was really, really cool. And then I didn't actually, I got over there later in the Olympics, so I didn't get to see any of our swimmers. And then we did have one track and field student athlete who competed in the discus, but unfortunately I got there later than she was there. But the other thing I got to do is I got to go down to MacDill Air Force Base, which is home to the U.S. Special Operations Command, and spent the evening with General Brian Fenton, who oversees all of our special forces, and then got to spend the next day with him and his team. And it was just fascinating just talking to him about leadership. And once again, how similar to me good leadership is. Like I said, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel here. We're just trying to take bits and pieces. I tell our coaches all the time, like, go spend some time with another coach. Like, you're a really good coach, but maybe there's something over there in their toolbox that maybe you can grab a tool out of their toolbox to make your toolbox a little bit bigger and more robust. And so being able to spend time with him and his team was just, like I said, it was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and really did get to spend some time just talking about leadership. And these are some things that he just mentioned to me that really resonated with me. I wrote down about 2 or 3 pages of just notes and quotes and things. But I'll read a few of them to you here and just talk about them a little bit. We're all faced with a series of great opportunities brilliantly disguised as impossible situations. And once again, most of these are pretty simple, right? But the amount of times that we look at something and we're like, oh boy, like, this is going to be really challenging, as opposed to like, this is an awesome opportunity. Like, this is a really cool opportunity, so let's make the most of it and do the best that we possibly can. Humans are more important than hardware. And some of these were really interesting to me coming from a military leader, because it is that rank and file chain of command. So he didn't have to have, or doesn't have to have this attitude on a lot of things. Military, like, hey, you're going to fall in line. And so his ability to look at it from a broader view, as far as giving people voices and allowing people in the organization to be heard, was really interesting to me. But humans are more important than hardware. Right? The most important part of any organization is its people. And I think we all know that, but I think sometimes we forget it. And so I think reminding myself that, once again, no matter what we do, we're going to be very, very intentional with who's going to be a part of our organization. This one was just military, talking about, like, this one was military. We will win every time, every place, in any environment. Actually, I should say American military. I mean, that is the U.S. military right there. Because he truly looks at it like, hey, the world is depending on us to win when we need to win. And that one just, like, and I don't, to be honest with you, I don't want us to have that attitude. I want us to be really good, and we're going to compete really, really hard at everything. But I'm more of the mindset that winning is a byproduct of doing everything right. And so that's where, I wouldn't say we didn't see eye to eye. We're just in different situations and scenarios there. He wants his group to be a learning organization, always trying to learn and think through things and think about them differently. And in college athletics, that's where we're at right now. I don't know how many people in the room really know or understand where we are in college athletics right now, but it's going through arguably the biggest transformation that this industry has ever seen. Next year, we're going to be able to pay our student athletes upwards of $20 million. And how are we going to do that? And how are we going to find that revenue? And what are the consequences of that? I mean, there is a lot going on there. And so if we are not questioning and we're not learning every day, then we're going to be in trouble. And so spending a lot of time just reflecting on, hey, how can we do it better? How can we do it differently? Competent special operations forces cannot be created after emergencies occur. That's something I tell our staff all the time. So I came up in the operations world in athletics, so managing events, doing things like that. And something that I would always remind myself, you're working until midnight, and you've got to be up at 5 a.m. when you're hosting, Sweet 16 or Elite 8 or Final Fours or national championships. And you're like, I've got these 4 other things that I need to check off the to-do list. And it's like, I'll do them in the morning. But I would always remind myself, if you wait till the morning to do those 4 things, there's going to be 10 other things that weren't on your to-do list, so you're going to be behind. So making sure that you do everything that you can possibly do to be as prepared as you can possibly be going into whatever the situation is. I'm big with our staff. I'm like, guys, put the plan together, and then it's easy to execute it. Put the plan together, and then we can execute it. So we try really hard to do that. Let's see here. Centralized management and decentralized execution. That one just, especially from a military standpoint. But we have 23 sports in our athletic department, and they all have head coaches. And so, how do we empower them to make the decisions? But we still have a good understanding of what's going on from the central administration. And so making sure that our staff and our coaches feel empowered to make decisions, but we still have a very good understanding of the decisions that we're making, or that they're making. I could go on and on. The freedom to fail offers the opportunity to succeed. You guys have heard certain versions of these. It goes on and on. So those were from General Brian Fenton in my trip to US SOCOM, which, like I said, once in a lifetime opportunity. And then I'll just read a few others that I think are really important to how we are trying to operate in the athletic department. This one is just about culture. Culture is the living, breathing essence of what an organization values, believes, thinks, says, and does. Culture isn't one thing, it's everything. Culture is not one person, it's everyone. Culture is not static, it's dynamic. Every day, everyone in the organization creates your culture by what they value, believe, think, say, and do. Regardless of what your culture was like last year or even yesterday, what matters most is what you're doing today to build your culture and make it great. And I think that embodies a lot of the things that I just talked about, making sure that we're hiring the right people, making sure that we are making the decisions every day with, once again, what's the best decision for the University of Louisville. And I talk about the pendulum swinging. If we make a decision or we let a decision go where we saw something, it's like, it's not that big of a deal. It'll be okay. But what we don't realize is there was other people in the organization that realized that we were okay with that decision. So then when it's time for them to make a decision, it's like, hey, they were okay with this, so they'll probably be okay with this. And then you get over here, and then you get over here, and then we've seen it, right? I think about the amount of organizations that we've seen where it's like, what in the heck was going on over there? And I'm a firm believer that if we keep the pendulum right here, and we make the right decisions every day, that we'll end up putting ourselves in a good position. And then this one, I think, really embodies what our athletic department is about as well. And this is a quote from Warren Buffett. He said, 40 years ago, Tom Murphy gave me one of the best pieces of advice I've ever received. He said, Warren, you can always tell someone to go to hell tomorrow. You haven't missed the opportunity. Just forget about it for a day. If you feel the same way tomorrow, tell them then, but don't spout off in a moment of anger. And we have 2 rules in our athletic department that we're going to treat people how they want to be treated, which, as you can imagine, is a little bit different than the way you want to be treated. And that's what I try to remind our staff of all the time. Like, just because it's not offensive to me doesn't mean it wasn't offensive to, if I said it to somebody. Like, it could be offensive to them. So what I think about it is irrelevant. What everybody else thinks about it is what's important. So we're going to treat people how they want to be treated, and we're going to be nice to one another. And it seems pretty simple, but it's surprising how hard, even for me at times, it is to do that. And a good way for me to do that, I call it the 24-hour rule, is just take a break. I'm not firing that crappy email off, at least not for 24 hours. I might end up firing it off, but I'm at least going to think about it before I do. Because you can't, once you've said something, you can't take it back, right? It is so hard, I was going to say it's so hard to take it back, you can't take it back. And so just making sure that we're just trying to lead with integrity, doing the right thing, treating people well. And then I'll end it with this. I tell our staff all the time that the quickest way to stop being wrong is to change your mind. And so, how are we making sure that if we're getting new information, that we're saying, hey, yeah, we've got new information, we're going to change our mind. Because I think all too often people, they get stuck, like, hey, this is a decision I made, I'm going to keep going down this path. And it's like, that path is not the right way. And it would be so easy if we just changed direction. But I mean, the amount of times, and once again, we've all seen it, and I've done it, right? But I'm forged ahead, and we're going to see where this goes because I made this decision here, as opposed to saying, you know what, we're going to pivot a little bit. So, that's just a little insight to the athletic department. Like I said, the university as a whole is just extremely, extremely excited about where things are headed. I truly can't say enough about President Schatzel's leadership. Like I said, the board, her leadership team just have a ton of confidence in what we're doing at the University of Louisville right now. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to wake up every day and try to get better. So with that, I'll be happy to open it up for questions here. Ken, if you
Coming
would like
up,
that.
abide by the rules. I'll start it off. Some folks who know stuff think that NIL for UofL is one of the top 2 in the country. If you can embellish how you are so good at that, and then if you can kind of give us more in depth on how do you go about getting 20 million, because that's an every year thing.
Yeah.
Kind of shed light on, everybody's struggling with it. How's UofL doing?
Yeah, so from an NIL standpoint, most everybody in the room understand name, image, and likeness and the opportunity to pay student athletes now. I would tell you, I think we've done it through being innovative. I think if you look at it on the surface, people just go, Louisville has a lot of money. I can promise you we don't have more money than Michigan and Ohio State and Alabama. If you look at these alumni bases, if you look at our alumni base, I think we're about 180,000, I think. Texas A&M has 60,000 students that are going there right now. We were ecstatic that we broke 24. And so, it's not a numbers game. Like they have more alumni, they have more people giving back. It's how are we as efficient as we can possibly be with the money that we are getting. And I'm not trying to minimize the amount of money that we've received because I'm very, very thankful to the people that have helped us be one of the top collectives in the country. But it's about, like I said, it's about being innovative. It's about creating a reputation out there with recruits, with agents, with whoever it may be. They know that if they come to the University of Louisville, they're going to be taken care of. It's about having the right leadership. And when I say leadership, I mean our coaches, because they want to, student athletes want to play for coaches that are going to put them in positions to be successful. I think we're doing that. Now I could go on and on about the NIL world. As far as how we're going to move forward, I think we've got to look at how we're doing everything internally. Previously student athletes, like our recruiting tools were, we're going to have the best this and that, and to me, I look at it more like a job offer now. It's like, hey, this company might be bigger and there might be better bells and whistles, but I feel more confident that this company is going to take care of me. So I'm going to go with this company. And that's what we have to do, right? And, we're not about designing the craziest locker rooms with, all the LED lights and God knows what else. It's like, are we going to take care of our student athletes and make sure that we're upholding that part of our reputation? I think if we do that, then we're going to continue to get really, really good student athletes here. So.
Josh, Ashley Brower, I'm the chair of the Speakers Committee, so thank you for being here today. My question, you touched a little bit on the transformation that's coming, and NIL is a part of that. With every student being on a scholarship, I know that's changing some of the numbers on the teams. I have a friend whose son is a high school senior looking at playing ball, and he's hearing that some of these ball teams are cut in half. And so does that push the kids to D2 and D3, and then the kids that would have done D3, where did they go? And I just wonder if you would speak about I know we don't know the full impact, but what do you foresee for especially some of these smaller sports?
Yeah. So and I think preliminarily it might be approved today by the judge. So essentially, so the House versus NCAA lawsuit is really it's going to be the catalyst for all of these changes. And I'm not going to get into all the details of it, but essentially the NCAA and the Power 5 conferences said, hey, we want to settle this case. And so there's really two parts to this case. One is there's the damages portion of the case, which essentially says, hey, previous student athletes were not allowed to make money off of their name, image, and likeness, so they're going to be paid damages because they weren't allowed to do that. And so those damages are just a little bit less than $3 billion. And so the NCAA and all of the member or Division I institutions are going to help fund that over the next 10 years. And so that's a significant, that's a significant check for everybody to be a part of. For the University of Louisville, it means a reduction in revenue from the NCAA to the tune of about $1 million a year over the next 10 years. So it's $2.77 billion paid out over the next 10 years. And then moving forward, it's the $20 million expense that we didn't have before. And how they came up with that number as part of the settlement was we can revenue share with our student athletes 22% of the average annual revenues of the Power 4 institutions, which is $90 million roughly, 22% of that. It's called $20 million. And so what does that look like for sports and athletic departments as a whole to get to answering your question? Actually, let me back up. There's one other piece of that settlement which said we are going to eliminate scholarship limits. Right? The NCAA had created, scholarship limits: 85 in football, 15 in women's basketball, 13 in men's basketball. You go through 12 in men's track, 18 in women's tracks. How they come up with those numbers, I have no idea. They just came up with those numbers. And now what they have are squad, essentially roster limits, right? So let's say the roster size for football is probably going to be 105. So that means 105 football players can be on scholarship instead of previously it was 85. So that's what institutions have to decide now. Do they want to fund an additional 20 football scholarships? If so, all right, is there going to be reductions in others? From a Title IX standpoint, making sure that we stay compliant there. So to answer your question, when you say rosters are going to be reduced, we're not really, as I've talked to coaches, roster sizes could go down some, but scholarships are not going to go down. And getting into headcount versus equivalency scholarships, so football, volleyball, men's, women's basketball, women's tennis, I feel like I'm missing one. Those are headcount sports. So if you get a scholarship in those sports, room, board, books, tuition, everything's paid for. All the other sports, they're equivalency sports. So it's like, hey, you're going to get $1,000 for tuition. You're going to get $5,000, but you can't go over the limit of, like I said, women's track 18. You can't have more than 18 total scholarships, even though you have a roster of 40, right? So you could say, hey, we're going to have 36 on a roster. Everybody's going to get a half a scholarship. Does that make sense? I know there's a lot going on there, and I can talk about this for much longer, but I wouldn't worry a whole lot about that, I guess, the short answer. I don't expect roster sizes to be significantly reduced, or scholarships to be significantly reduced. Why don't I say that?
So despite the color of my jacket, I'm a longtime UofL fan. One of the great memories of my life was the 1986 NCAA tournament. I was in high school at the time, and I remember I was a checker at Kroger's, and I remember checking Purvisell's groceries one day, and I got his autograph. So anyway, my question is back to NIL. I'm just wondering, what has been the biggest surprise for you in dealing with the NIL landscape?
I think probably this, because I find myself saying this pretty frequently. Most of the time, if there's issues around the current status of an individual student athlete from a name, image, likeness standpoint, it usually isn't coming from the student athlete. A lot of times it's coming from their representation or even their families of, hey, you're not getting paid enough, you need more money, this, that. And so very rarely is it like, they're 18 to 22, they want to go play their sports, by and large. But it's the people in their ear, like, you need this, you need that, that I think is probably the most surprising. So that'd be my real short answer.
Yeah. Hello, this is a fun question for you, but a question that keeps us all up every night. You've recruited some great coaches. They've recruited some great student athletes. What can we do about the refs?
I tell you what, it is a good example. I serve on the women's basketball selection committee, so help have oversight of the women's tournament. And it's something that I have been very vocal about since I've been on that committee. I'm going into my third year. Is that the women's basketball game is significantly faster than it used to be. And so while these student athletes are getting bigger, faster, and stronger, the officiating has not kept up with the speed of the game. And so how do we make sure that in the women's game, just as far as what I would be focused on, how are we making sure that we're putting the officials, the referees in positions to be successful, right? Do they have the training that they need? Do they have the rules in? Like, what are the things that we can do? Are they being compensated so that that there's other people that as they're coming up, saying, hey, I'm officiating men's and women's games. The pay's equal. So what, I think I'm gonna kind of go to the women's game as opposed to the men's game. Just different things like that. So I know you kind of joke about it, but it's something, because to me it is, I think the best example I could use was the Final Four 2 years ago. That national championship game between LSU and Iowa. The officiating was at the center of that. And it shouldn't have been the case. Shouldn't have been the case. The amount, I literally got text messages from people, the Louisville fans, that are like, I'm watching women's basketball for the first time in my life, and the officiating is awful. Did we just lose that fan as far as women's basketball goes? And that's what we can't do. So it's important. Yeah.
Josh, Jeff Underhill. Every organization has problems. The bigger it is, presumably the more problems to deal with, more moving parts. You certainly manage a large operation. It's been well noted in football when we were somewhat lackluster. The hire you made, what impressed me was you got another school up the road to pay part of the bill. Now that was impressive. In basketball, I think we pride ourselves who we are in Louisville, a lot to do with how the team does here locally. I think we all struggled with a beloved player struggling as coach. You did what you had to do, and the optimism is huge. I struggled as a long-time ticket holder, not with the performance on the court, because I knew ultimately you had to do something to fill those seats. What I struggled with was that while the people who used to sit around me changed, I got the fan from hell sitting right behind me. And I did put it in an email, and I got a phone call from you. And you talked as long as I wanted to talk about it, and you proposed solutions. So I will tell you, that is leadership. You handled it personally, and I appreciate that. That is not a matter of preventing those problems from happening, but reacting to them proactively. So we're in good hands. So I'm supposed to ask a question. I'll ask you on September 22nd. Will you point the t-shirt cannon toward the Rotary section? or will you share your tailgate locations for September 28th? And just confidentially with Rotarians.
So, first of all, thanks, Jim. I really appreciate you saying that. And September 22nd, it's by Amy Calabrese, who I'm sure some of you know, who's Deputy Athletic Director for me, but she has oversight of volleyball. She came in the other day, and she's like, hey, what do you really need to be working on right now? And I'm like, I want the 20,000 people at the Young Center on September 22nd. That's it. That's what I want to be working on. Because I genuinely think we have the best volleyball coach in the country. She hasn't won as many championships as some coaches out there, but she's going to win them. And the thing that I want, probably more than anything, is think about this stat. There has never been a women's head coach, so a female head coach has never won the women's volleyball national championship. Think about that. So I want Danny to be the first woman head coach to win a national championship at the University of Louisville. And hopefully it's in Louisville, Kentucky later this year. But I said, Danny is incredible. I had the chance to talk to the locker room when they lost in the national championship match a few years ago, and I had the opportunity to work with Jay Wright, and I told the team this. I said, guys, you have one of the best cultures that I've ever been around. I mean, I would put your culture up there with the culture that Jay had created, and that's Danny. And so September 22nd, we're going to try to make sure everybody's happy. And so, yes, if we have to make you guys happy by pointing the t-shirt gun at the Rotary section, we will do that. And we're trying to figure things out for the 28th. We were working on that yesterday, so I don't have an answer for you on that one yet.
Hey, Josh, well, Kuno, got a couple of questions for you. Could you talk a little bit about Dabo Sweeney not using the transfer portal? And then I'm a huge Louisville baseball fan, and I know Dan had made the tournament in 3 years. Talk a little bit about the challenges that they've had.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I really don't want to talk about other programs because you just don't really know what's going on there. I think from an outsider's perspective, I think he thinks that he has an unbelievable culture, and I am curious to know if he thinks bringing transfers in is going to disrupt that. It's kind of the sense I get, but I don't really know, to be honest with you. The one thing that I would say, and I tell our staff and our coaches this all the time, is evolve or die. And you've seen a lot of coaches do it. That hey, this has worked, this has worked, this is what I'm doing. And then it doesn't work, and they don't adjust. And not just coaches, leadership in general. And so for me, and I'll use Jay as an example again, I think he realized, I was really successful doing it this way. And I'm not sure that I want to change a whole lot. And so I'm not going to. So I'm just going to get out of the game. And then, baseball, I think Dan has had to go through that evolution a little bit as well, quite honestly. Because, Dan, once again, a very specific culture, right? He develops talent. He's incredible at it. If you look at, I think we have more players that have been on opening day rosters than any other program in the last 5 or 10 years. He develops talent, and they end up playing in the major leagues. And I think he was a little reticent to say, hey, we can bring transfers in and they're going to fit into that culture. But I think he's figured that out some. Quite honestly, I think he's really excited about the class that he has coming in, and he's got a handful of really good transfers. And so I'm excited about the baseball season. I'm excited about his leadership and everything that he's done here. He's going to be going into his 18th year, I believe. 5 College World Series appearances. So I've got faith that he's going to get this thing headed in the right direction and get it back to where he had it for a long, long time.
Josh, thanks for coming today. I know we're getting to the end of the meeting, but I just had to ask this question. My name's Ken Grossman, and I guess my family's had tickets to University of Louisville basketball for over 50 years. I remember seeing Wes Unseld throwing outlet passes all the way down the court in the early 60s. And I think I'm like a lot of Louisvillians, and we have that history, and you won't find a bigger sports fan than me, but I'm wondering what the change in the business model, the relationship between sports and academics and the university. My son went to Alabama, so I get it. The way they've leveraged football has helped the university to propel it. But it seems like now with the NIL and with the transfer portal that essentially these are professionals playing football and basketball. And how does that fit into the big picture of the university? There's so many people that feel like the university is just sports.
Yeah.
And how do you frame that relationship?
Yeah, I would tell you, by and large, take 23 of our sports. A large majority of them, I'd say 20, 21 of them, a whole lot hasn't changed. You know, it's still business as usual. They are student athletes, as everybody in this room remembers them. You know, football, men's basketball, women's basketball to a certain extent, baseball to a certain extent. You know, I think you are trending more towards that, you call it professional athlete. And, you know, I don't like everything about that. You know, I don't. You know, so to your question, how do we reconcile that? I think we just try to do the best that we can. And you try to get them in a place where they want to stay here. You know, like I'll use Ashton, right? Ashton's one of the best DNs in the country, maybe the best DN in the country. I mean, every program in the country will say, hey, come, you know, leave Louisville. And he said, I love it here. You know, like, yeah, it's got to make sense for him to stay here. He's not staying here for free. But he's like, I love it here. And so once again, I go back to kind of that just kind of job description, right? I mean, I'm presuming everybody's had opportunities to go work somewhere where they had a chance to make more money than what they're making now. But a large majority of us have said, you know what, money's great, but I'm happy here. And so I think if we can, once again, just make sure that we're going to take really good care of them, and they know that, and they've got the academic support that they need, and they know that, and they've got, you know, I'll use mental health as a really good example. I mean, our mental health, we have 10 mental health professionals dedicated to our student athletes. I don't think there's any other program in the country that has that. And it's like, hey, like all of these things, they're really good at the University of Louisville. And so I'm going to continue to stay here, get my degree. And I think if we do that more often than not, it's still going to be, you know, feel like college athletics used to be to a certain extent. You know, like look at our basketball roster, right? You know, and you can say the same thing about Kentucky's. Every year you're like, well, I don't know these guys. And that was one of the cool things about college athletics, right? It's like, oh, they're freshmen. They played 5 minutes. Like, oh, you know, I like them. And by the time they're seniors, you're like, I remember them as a freshman. And you get connected to them. And, you know, some of that has been lost. But I think if we can continue to keep the nucleus of teams around, so you still get a little bit of that. So it's not quite, you know, just purely professional. And like I said, they're getting their degrees here and things of that nature. That's what we're going to try to do. You know, but we're not going to be so stubborn that we're not going to evolve and try to keep up and be as competitive as we can be. Appreciate everybody listening, and if I can ever do anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I don't know if I'll personally take your call, but I will if I can help with something. But September 22nd, that's a big date for us. So if you need tickets, whatever it may be, if we can help get this group tickets, let me know. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Josh. I was counting the time you were in. That was pretty challenging time. Just because you're in, you were still the athletic director. So you are approaching 4 years, and you have the gray hair to show for these. We really appreciate it. And next week, Vivian, who is with us, will be speaking on unlocking your potential, 5 essential keys to future-proof your business. I'm intrigued. So we look forward to having you next week. If you want to RSVP, you have to do it by Monday at noon, and you can do it on the QR code on the screen. And if you want to visit with Jay for a few minutes on the What is a Rotary table, please do. And with that, we are adjourned.